Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're just going to give it a few minutes as we get started here for folks to join. We'll give it just one more minute and we'll kick off the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I see the participants climbing here. Give it one more minute, everybody. We'll get started. Hope everybody's having a great day. I'm really lucky to hear. I see our other panelists are all joined, so really excited to kick this off in just a minute here. Okay, it looks like we've leveled off. We got our couple panelists. I'm super excited to introduce today's topic and start the discussion here. So thank you everybody for joining us. Really excited about this Migrate the security, not the infrastructure topic that we're discussing today, and very lucky and honored to have Samir, one of our partner solution architects, joining us for the presentation today as we explore a partnership that we've both with Trend Micro and AWS have been on quite a long journey together, Samir. I think we've been working together for quite a while. So really excited to share some of the new services, some of the new security outcomes we can deliver today. And so welcome everybody. And Samir, thank you for joining us today. I know you and I were talking as we prepped for this webinar and got ready about why do folks look for network-based approaches and why are they important? What kind of value, what kind of security value do our customers get? And I think we settled on like, hey, the really appealing thing about network approaches, and probably why we're talking here today, is they give such broad runtime protection, really for any AWS service that has a network interface in a VPC. And I think that is one of the appeals of network-based approaches. Compliance, I know you and I talked like PCI DSS, like everybody's got this compliance driver. Not everyone, but a lot of folks have this compliance driver chasing them down. How do I achieve PCI DSS compliance easily? Network approaches commonly get discussed. And yeah, in the face of a whole slew of different types of attack techniques, vulnerabilities, and Java serialization issues were some that we were discussing, but there's a whole slew of things that network-based controls can offer protection from: vulnerabilities, reconnaissance, detecting and disrupting exfiltration, helping manage traffic to only known allowed locations. Yeah, really great outcomes, really great security controls. And so we're talking, how do we make this as easy as possible for our mutual customers to achieve these goals without really the burden of operational headaches that come on board with that? So I think that's some of the stuff we want to talk about today, how we can help achieve that. And I'm sure what I'm most excited to hear from you is, as an SA, a solution architect at AWS, I'm sure you've heard a lot of customers look to include a network approach, and love for you to walk you through. And before I hand it over, I'm going to do my best to be your virtual clicking device. But if I get it wrong, just let me know, Samir, and I will go backward or forward in a slide. So yeah, Samir, what have you seen, and can you tell us a little bit about network approaches?
Absolutely. So thank you for hosting us, Russ. I know it's been a good few weeks since we've been discussing this topic. But at a high level, as we start off talking to customers about moving workloads into AWS, they have both a data-centric view of the world when they start off, and I think it's important to probably level set a little bit upon, as you start migrating applications into the cloud. How do you view sort of the security responsibilities that the customer has, and how it differentiates or is different between the on-premises world versus AWS? And we'll focus a little bit on what that means at the network layer as well. So for example, AWS views security as a shared responsibility between us and our customers. And what that means is AWS is responsible for security off the cloud versus customers being responsible for security in the cloud. Couple of examples on that front is if you look at using something like Elastic Compute Cloud or EC2, which enables you to run sort of virtual machines in AWS. AWS would be responsible for security of everything from the underlying physical infrastructure up until the hypervisor layer, which is very different from the on-prem world where you have to consider the physical security, understand how you're wiring up the boxes, make sure you have intact power supplies and dual sort of components and account for failures and things like that. But in addition, you're also looking after for all of the traffic that is traversing through that data center between applications, from users to the application. But in the clouds, customers are only responsible for things like the data that persists on that EC2 instance, for example, the vulnerabilities that might exist, and the traffic that goes in and out of that instance. So it's a very different sort of constructs that we look at, and it eases a lot of the burden that customers have, to your point, about how much do they need to actually take care of the infrastructure and babysit it.
Yeah.
Along with that, the security of it as well. So with that said, the next sort of question that comes up is, as I move stuff into the cloud and I look at network security practices to implement, how do I go about understanding how to pick an architecture and a workflow to implement those considerations? We look at it in 6 different constructs. By no means this is an exhaustive list, but we think that this is a good framework to begin with. And you start off by understanding the direction of traffic, which enables you to understand who your users are and what threats you can have. It'll also dictate the security policy, because an inbound web application versus 2 microservices talking to each other will have completely different sort of threat models compared to each other. And given that customers also separate their environments into dev, test, and prod as a best practice, the availability requirements for each of these environments is completely different, which moves on and ties into the next point, which is these different applications might have different amounts of bandwidth that are being pushed through them. And so how do you account for both of those aspects, in addition to how many VPCs that customers use? We initially saw customers using VPCs as sort of almost a boundary for an application, but now they've even split it across multiple AWS accounts, and the AWS account is becoming the boundary at this point for each application and application owner. And that ties into sort of the protocols and the actual detail of what the application is doing, which would dictate how you design for network security.
Yeah, I love that, Samir, the direction of traffic, right? Publicly accessible web server might be vulnerable to reconnaissance activities and other maybe software vulnerabilities as well that have to be defended against, versus a piece of code that has outbound internet access might be concerned about, who's it talking to, disrupting reconnaissance activity, I should say exfiltration activity and things like that. So I love the way you frame that. Hey, I have a survey question, Samir. Let me start our first survey question here and kick that off here. I'm really curious for our audience. So as we talked about, Samir showed some of the design considerations. We talked about some of the security requirements and values. Really curious what folks on the call are trying today. And let me hit launch. So we'll give it a few seconds here, but the question is pretty straightforward. What type of folks on the phone that are using different tools? What are you trying today? Are you using a combination of tools? And I see a couple answers coming in. Oh, pretty exciting. This is always stressful for the presenter, because Samir and I are going to talk about the results and we just have no idea what it's going to be. So we'll give it a couple seconds here. And as folks are answering the survey question, there is time reserved at the end of this for Q&A. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat now. We'll have some time reserved at the end of the conversation to address as many of those as we can. So, okay, so it looks like we got a lot of great votes here. I'm going to hit end poll. Hopefully it shares the results with everybody. I can see the results. And so Samir, maybe we'll just take a second here to talk about some of these in a second, but looks like pretty balanced, a lot of different controls, but Certainly homegrown open source or custom built solutions is at the top of the list, followed by routing traffic. The intent, at least, of inspecting on premises, we do see this pattern. I think Samir, you and I were talking about this as well, where we see AWS customers routing traffic back to a physical data center for inspection and then out some other way. So, let me hit share results. Sorry, I missed one more button click there. So hopefully everybody can see those. Yeah, anything that it sort of jumps out at you, Samir, looking at those results, or?
It's really interesting that it's such a balanced sort of result. So to be honest, I didn't expect it, but it's super interesting to learn from.
Hey, that is the on the fly survey results as the panelist here. So cool. And I know we want to talk a little bit about some of those. So let me just hand it back to you, Samir, on to the next slide here, where we talk about some of these options.
So it does sort of, we have observed this from customers, right? We've seen them use potentially 4 different ways of identifying network traffic that might be malicious, and each of them have their own benefits and sort of complexities associated to it. From a homegrown perspective, customers have used things like squid proxies and snort-based devices, not snort, but perhaps Suricata or something like that. But the challenge there is customers need to both handle the scaling and the availability of the infrastructure, but also need to ensure that they're putting in the right sort of threat feeds and rule sets that are necessary for their application. If you take just off-the-shelf rules, you might end up either having false positives or false negatives, and that becomes a challenge. And you're always having to keep up to date with all of the different threat feeds that you might have to either license or procure, get from different sort of sources. Third-party tools, including virtual firewalls from partners. Again, we've seen customers use them. They have a lot of different ways that you can implement them, and the challenge is the complexity that is involved in both determining the best fit for how it would work, as well as if you want to secure all your traffic, having EC2 instances all over the place, along with licensing and things like that could become a little bit of a challenge. The other aspect of it is for customers that have just started moving into the cloud, we've also seen them sort of hairpin traffic back and forth, which means they're introducing an unnecessary bottleneck of having to route everything through a single device on-prem, and also introduce latency. And as the traffic in the cloud grows, you'll see that happen pretty quick. It becomes a challenge then for the customer to figure out how to then move and re-architect and start figuring out how to do this in a cloud native fashion, which brings us to sort of the cloud native approach, where we work in conjunction with AWS services alongside our partners to create cloud native constructs and architectures which would remove all of these additional sort of burden that customers might experience as they start implementing security on the network layer within their application workloads in AWS.
Yeah, thanks, Samir. Next survey question, by the way, the second of our 2 survey questions. Just curious for the audience here. Samir just walked through a set of challenges. Curious what, if any of these challenges resonate with you. What is your biggest challenge? And we saw a lot of different approaches. Really curious to hear where the costs, or what the challenges are. We have things like cost, or the complexity of networking knowledge required, or the security expertise required, which is one of the challenges in our industry, of course. Or network isn't the right thing for me. Right. Yeah, definitely a little bit more of a standout here in this survey. And I'm going to make sure I click all the buttons here to share the results. Number 1 answer there: security expertise required to deploy and interpret the controls by far, followed by cost. So yeah, really great feedback. Thanks everyone for sharing your challenges with us. Samir, let me hand off to the next slide here, where we talk about some of the benefits of the cloud native approaches. Let me hand that There we go. Make sure I get the right slide up there.
Yeah. So the way that we think about sort of enabling customers to create cloud native architectures is to hand them APIs that would allow them to both scale and create availability for the network appliances that run within AWS. So given different environments have different requirements, we think of 6 different potential architectures again that you can use to create a network inspection capability. And depending again on the availability and the scalability required, you'd pick from one of these potential architectures. We started off initially with sort of interface shifting and route shifting, which allows you to fail over between virtual appliances themselves. But customers decided to push the boundaries and push more traffic through each appliance, which meant that the security needed to scale with the amount of traffic going through it. And so we started a new sort of architecture, which allows you to sandwich your security layer between 2 load balancers, which allows your inbound applications to handle the traffic and get inspected as it makes its way through the application. We also had transit VPC, which is still being used, but allows you to sort of have a centralized VPC that sits and orchestrates both routing between multiple VPCs within the AWS environment, as well as acting as a central point of inspection. Now, we saw customers doing that, and given the complexities we saw with transit VPC, we went and created Transit Gateway, which allows you to connect multiple VPCs together and hand it off to a centralized inspection VPC where your virtual appliances sit. And we could scale it based on either scaling up or potentially doing ECP across VPNs that terminate on the Transit Gateway. Transit Gateway is great, has many capabilities, but one of the things, again, the complexity that was introduced was maintaining statefulness of the flows, which required things like NAT, which customers didn't really like. And so with Gateway Load Balancer, what we enabled was a couple of different aspects. The scaling of the appliances itself was completely transparent to the network traffic. And I'll talk about a little bit about how we achieved that. But in addition, the components for Gateway Load Balancer allow for administrative domains for security folks and application owners to be separated, which means each person's comfortable with doing their jobs and not having to worry about each other's responsibilities. And that really has allowed both security teams to build services, to scale, and application owners to just route traffic and not really worry about, all of these different architectures on making sure that the security layer is available and scaling for them.
Yep, makes sense.
So we talked a little bit about Gateway Load Balancer, and as I mentioned, expanding on this a little bit, one of the reasons that we wanted to use a new construct was customers have told us that there's multiple complexities with Transit Gateway, and we want to still scale with the traffic. So with Gateway Load Balancer, you have a new type of load balancer that is able to deliver traffic without changing any of the IP information that is useful for the appliances themselves to make that correlation on whether the traffic is malicious or not, but allowing the separation of the administrative responsibilities by introducing something called a Gateway Load Balancer endpoint, which is another VPC endpoint that can be deployed in any VPC across AWS accounts. So what that means is your app can sit in account 1, your load balancer and appliance fleet can sit in another account. And we take care of shipping traffic between these 2 different environments, allowing the appliances to then receive traffic from multiple AWS accounts. The way we maintain sort of the transparency of the flows themselves is by performing encapsulation over the source traffic in a protocol called Geneve, which of course Trend supports as part of the integration that they've done before. And what that also allows you to do is, as you're scaling, the load balancer is aware of how many instances are behind it. So it does health checks and can fail over traffic, and can discover any flows that have to change, given that we identify it based on the 5 tuples in the IP packet. So given those capabilities, it now allows customers to create very cloud native like constructs for security inspection, without having to do a lot of the heavy lifting themselves, and use this managed capability for them to scale their appliance fleets, without having to make that trade-off as well.
Yeah, and Samir, I love we have been a network security vendor, as having that in our toolkit, that whole transparent and network traffic. We were so excited to be partners with the launch of this feature, as we wanted to be able to deliver security outcomes without having to re-architect, make changes to your IP level. So it was super exciting for us. And I know Michael's going to talk about that in just a second. So yeah, we love that. So sorry, Samir.
Yeah, no, and I think the second aspect of it is sometimes customers also want to hand off and offload the sort of requirements around owning even the infrastructure that scales, or allows these appliances to scale with the traffic, right? And so with AWS Network Firewall, customers' responsibilities again change a little bit, in that they don't have to own all of the infrastructure. What they have is a firewall that can allow them to just create the policies and rules that they need for inspecting the traffic. They will then just deploy it into the VPCs. It'll look like a VPC endpoint again within each VPC that they spin it up, and also allows centralized orchestration of those rules across AWS accounts with AWS Firewall Manager. So as a security administrator, I can do both deployment of these firewalls across AWS accounts and manage and audit the compliance of the rules and whether traffic is passing through it with Firewall Manager. And so we take ownership of a lot of the responsibilities around the infrastructure capabilities, and customers are then just sitting on top and performing the specific requirements around implementing rules. But what that means is, we saw a little bit about, having the security expertise and creating the right controls. And that's where we have allowed sort of, the capability for partners to provide that intelligence that customers can use, by enabling third-party rule sets to be integrated into Network Firewall, which allows, partners like Trend to again provide the capability to still provide the security that customers are looking for, but still offloading some of that infrastructure if they choose to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samir, for joining, and another great integration. We were super excited to be launch partners with AWS on deliver those security outcomes with minimizing those or eliminating those infrastructure management challenges, right? So both were really, really, really powerful, and super excited with. And with that, thank you so much, Samir, for joining us. Mr. Michael Habibi is joining us as well from the Trend side, and I was so excited to get this kicked off. I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Russ Myers, the Director of Cloud Network Security at Trend Micro, joined here with Michael Habibi on our product management team, responsible for our threat management, making security outcomes easier to consume from our tools. And he's going to talk about some of the options we have available and touches on some of the integrations that Samir shared with us. All of those are available through a platform we call Cloud One. This is a security platform built for cloud builders, and presents a lot of different tools all in a single console experience. And we're going to talk about those networking controls today. So of the little cloud pie here, we're talking about network security in the bottom right, but we'll talk a little bit more about Cloud One at the very end. But Michael, over to you. And I know you want to introduce a couple integrations that we've done and talk about those.
Yep, thanks, Russ. As Russ mentioned, with Trend Micro and AWS, you have some options. First, I wanted to talk about what we offer for our customers who are eyeing or otherwise already leveraging Network Firewall today in their environment. So Samir already talked about the benefits of deploying AWS Network Firewall to protect your network traffic of your VPCs, but he also mentioned you can take that a step further by partnering with security vendors like Trend Micro or Threat Intelligence. I think that's one of the cool features of Network Firewall. It allows us to share that threat intelligence directly with your AWS account so you can leverage that in your policy. Using Network Firewall's built-in IPS engine and firewall capabilities, we're able to enrich that security posture of your firewall deployment by sharing both stateless rules that can block things like malicious or suspicious hosts, as well as some stateful IPS inspection rules for deep packet inspection for things like malware and ransomware. Now today, we offer this introductory set of rules at no additional cost. All you have to do is sign up for a free trial for Cloud One. And from network security, you can share those rules directly with your AWS account for immediate use. And I'll show you how easy that is here in a second with a quick demo. Now, our integration is still fairly new. We're working on how to improve that so we can share more rules with you in the future, offer more robust configuration, and just a broader set of threat intelligence to keep you protected. If you'd like to learn more about that or discuss your use cases directly, please feel free to reach out to us. So let me show you how easy it is to get this going. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a command here so stuff can start happening in the background. Don't worry, I'll get back to what I just did and why I did it at the start of this demo. But once I get that out of the way, I want to talk about how easy it is to get up and running with our threat intelligence using Network Firewall. So once you log into Cloud One, you can navigate to network security. Once you get there, right at the top, you'll see a banner talking about our threat intelligence sharing. All you got to do is follow that link and you'll land on a page where you can learn more about this integration and also get it up and running. As you're going to see here, it's pretty easy to share with your account and it's fully automated. Once you enter this information and click enable sharing, we're going to share that directly with your account. Now, in my case, in my account, I've already accepted the sharing. So I'm going to skip ahead and just show you what those rule groups are themselves. So here you're going to be able to see the various stateless rule groups, things that can protect you against malicious IPs, bogus IP, spam IPs, etc. There's also a stateful rule group that's focused on malware as part of our introductory set. Now, our documentation does go into more details about each of these groups so you can learn more. Also, another thing I did here to save us a bit of time is I've pre-configured an AWS Network Firewall that's running a policy that already includes our threat intelligence. As you see here, I've already associated this policy. If we go take a quick look at it, you're going to see it's leveraging specifically our malware rule group, and that's what we want to demo today. Another important configuration change I've made here, which I actually want to recommend to you all, is I went into Network Firewall and I actually enabled logging, and I highly encourage you to enable logging in your environment as well, so you have visibility into these potential threats that are being detected. So now my firewall is ready to go. Let's get back to this command line. What was I doing? Well, in my environment, I've set up an EC2 instance as part of my web application, and it has inbound and outbound internet access. Now, they told me not to actually install malware on the server, so instead I ran a command that simulates what malware would do if it actually compromised my instance. This traffic should be picked up by AWS Network Firewall, and the little timestamp is just help us compare against the logs to make sure we're looking at the right event. Now, we want to set you up for success, so this command is actually available in our documentation. So once you configure this integration, we give you the commands you can use to test it yourself to make sure your environment's up and running and leveraging our threat intelligence correctly. Now, in this case, I actually used the dragon muddy test command, the same one as it's in the docs. So let's go here, and this is why I ran this command at the beginning of the demo, because it's going to take a few minutes to propagate to CloudWatch, so that was running in the background. So now this is where, Russ, you got a good joke or something while this waits? You got?
I have lots of jokes, but no good ones. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I think it'll be ready here in a second. There it is. So let's open it up and take a look. And there you have it. Just like that, AWS Network Firewall with Trends Threat Intelligence has detected a potential compromised host reaching out. Now, let's say this happens in your environment and you want to learn more about, well, what is this malware that the AWS Network Firewall alerted me to? You can actually look that up in our console. So if you go back to network security and go to our filter page, you can type the name of the malware in, You can look it up and learn more about what our threat research team has to say about this malware. Now, in this case, looking up Dragon Money, that's what I used. And the thing here to note is, according to our threat research team, if you see this alert, it's indicative of potential compromise of breach hosts. And I think that's why we want to make sure you have logging enabled, so you can be aware of these type of activities in your environment in case they need to be actioned. So it's that easy to enrich AWS Network Firewall with our threat intelligence and getting visibility into malware and potential compromises in your environment.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Michael. Yeah.
So Samir talked about earlier, AWS offers a multitude of solutions based on customers' needs, with Gateway Load Balancer being a great example that allows for seamless integration of virtual clients into customers' networks. Let's talk about how Cloud One Network Security with Gateway Load Balancer can also be used to secure your networks. At its heart, Cloud One Network Security is a network layer security-focused virtual appliance that can protect anything in your VPC that has a network interface. For those assets that may have inbound connectivity, things like web servers or applications, we offer comprehensive virtual patching filters that can protect you from the latest and actively circulating threats and exploits. For your instances that have outbound connectivity, our threat intel can also help prevent things like exfiltration, attempts to reach command and control servers, as well as other techniques that are leveraged by malware and ransomware that could disrupt your business. We also offer ways to aid in PCI compliance, including our outbound filtering functionality, which restricts outbound traffic to known safe hosts. Even if you aren't actively seeking PCI compliance, this might be a good best practice for your organization to ensure your instances are only communicating with hosts you trust. Now, a couple other popular features I'd like to highlight are geolocation and anonymous proxy filtering controls. Some organizations may have no legitimate business need to allow traffic to or from certain countries. Maybe you only do business in your own country of origin or just a handful of countries in your region. This is a quick and easy way to limit your exposure by blocking traffic proactively to countries that your instances simply shouldn't be communicating with. And how many of you would block anonymous proxies from accessing your resources if you had a quick and easy way to do it? Most organizations also don't have a real need to allow traffic from anonymizing services. They can be commonly used by threat actors. You can block those with network security. So how do you get network security up and running in your cloud environment? As we alluded to earlier, we offer a flexible set of deployment options which allow you to seamlessly deploy into your existing infrastructure. We've already talked about all the great things about Gateway Load Balancer as one way to deploy. To reiterate a couple of things that Samir highlighted, it offers a more transparent solution, which doesn't change the source traffic, which in turn gives you more visibility into what's going on in your network. It also supports horizontal scaling of appliances and generally requires less infrastructure for you to manage, which are all obviously great things. But we can also be deployed alongside internet gateways, leveraging features like VPS ingress routing, and also using transit gateway as well, allowing you to fulfill your security requirements without having to rethink or re-implement your cloud architecture. Now, I know we went through these options fairly quick, but the main takeaway here is flexibility. With AWS and Trend Micro together, we have a solution for you. Back to you, Russ.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. And I think that wraps up the presentation. So thanks, Michael. Thank you so much, Samir. And we'll hop over into Q&A. So I see some chat questions popping in. I'll take a look at those in a second. Really quickly, before we go to the questions and I get to put the panelists and myself on the spot, I did want to point out, and I'm reflecting on one of the top options was cost, one of the top challenges. Of course, you can get started, try this for free. Head over to cloud1.trendmicro.com/trial, get a free, every service, by the way, not just network security, is available for free trial for 30 days. And we do some really clever things here, right? We don't take a traditional approach with how we might offer these, right? We only charge for what is actually inspected if you're using the virtual appliance route. So really easy to get started and get running and only pay for what you're using. So on top of that, I know Yvonne and I were talking earlier. I know that really thanks for your time today and for attending today. And I think there's a charcuterie box as a part of to show our appreciation for your attendance. But I know that if you schedule a follow-up meeting, there is a bamboo cutting board that's an option as well. And I think there are some AWS credits that might be available as well, make it even more, can I say, freer to try? When you get those AWS credits, you can use them for deploying gateway load balancer or the EC2 required to host a virtual appliance. So, all right, so enough with that. Let me hop over. I know we have one question that always comes up, and I'm going to start with that one. And maybe we can just discuss it here between Samir and Michael here. AWS network firewall versus gateway load balancer. Why you're presenting two of these? Which one do I know? How do I pick which one? So I know that comes up constantly. I don't know, Samir, is that okay to ask? How do you answer that when it comes up? Do you hear that question once in a while? Or
Yeah, we hear it all the time. I think it really depends on the customer's requirement around, how they want to run their inspection service and sort of the mechanism that they want to use to offload the responsibilities, right? We have, we have a certain set of customers that have in-house security teams that want to own everything, write their own rules, and create sort of the remediation patterns that are required as well. And so we see that sort of customer as opposed to certain set of customers say that, my expertise lies in creating rule sets or implementing rule sets. And so network firewall helps me offload that infrastructure and allows me to scale irrespective of how much traffic, but then I'll pull in sort of this threat intelligence, either from Trend or some other sort of open source feeds that they might have, and then integrate it to create the inspection capabilities. So we see it all the time. It really depends again on the responsibilities that the customer chooses to use.
yeah, anything to add on to there, Michael? I know flexibility. I love the way you put that. We want to work, if you're using network firewall, we want to make security accessible through that managed infrastructure Samir mentioned. Gateway load balancer is such a powerful way to centralize that, give that responsibility to the security team, as Samir mentioned. I know there's some security differences as well, and those are on the when you select that, you do pick up some differences. Or how do you answer that, Michael? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I think first and foremost, we do want to continue to focus on offering that flexibility to our customers, right? And I think part of that is why, I highlighted earlier on in the slides around, this is a new integration for us. We're starting with some security outcomes, but we want to learn more about what our customers need with network firewall to be able to continue to achieve those security outcomes. But today, with network firewall, with our threat intelligence, I would say that's, focused primarily on post-compromise detection of things like malware and ransomware. And today with Cloud One Network Security, we're also going to be able to offer things like virtual patching and geolocation filtering. But ultimately, at least my goal, as a product manager at Trend Micro, is I want to make sure that we're just solving the customer security problems in whichever way we think is best for them and fits in their cloud architecture. So I think it's also a little bit of a moving target, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Looking at the next question here. So just a couple, I think we have time for at least one more. What does it take to get started? How do I estimate the costs for deploying a service like this? Well, so maybe I'll just offer a couple things here. A trial, I mentioned, well, actually it's on the screen right now. We have a 30-day free trial for any services. If you pick the gateway load balancer options, these are on the requirements, at least on the virtual appliance side, to deploy that. Of course, there'll be some EC2 costs involved, which is why it's so great to reach out to Yvonne. She'll get you some credits to make that very free, and hopefully they cover that. But we do just charge by the gigabyte inspected on the Trend side, which is pretty cool. It's very, very much in line with, I think, how you see most of the AWS networking services offered. And Samir, please, let me know if I got that way off. You can tell me that's crazy. And it's actually pretty easy to go estimate this. If you'd like open up your cost explorer and look and like how much traffic am I sending to or from internet gateways for the past 6 months, you'll be able to do the quick, 100 gigabytes times the marketplace rates. This is all on marketplace, so it's super easy to get started if you already have or you're set up with the marketplace with AWS marketplace, and you can really go quickly estimate what this will cost you. So hope that answers that question. And I think we are just at time here. I think that's it for the questions, but I want to just take one last second to really thank our presenters. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Samir. And thank each and every one of you for spending your afternoon with us today. Would love it to see you have your security challenges met and made easy. So give the trial a try, and please reach out with any questions you have for us. Yvonne can connect you to us, and I know she can help coordinate one of those follow-up meetings if you'd like to make that happen. Otherwise, I think that is it, and we can wrap it up. And I hope everybody has a good afternoon and evening. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all so much for attending.
Thanks again.